Alright, now perhaps you're curious to see what the capital of Poland, Warsaw, looks like, or maybe you want to see what there is to see and do in this city. Don't worry, I've got you covered. It's my first time here in Warsaw as well, so as always, come along and explore the city with me. I'll show you what there is to see and do, and of course, as always, there'll be a little bit of history along the way. So come along and join me on my adventure. Let's go. Well, I tell you what, that view behind me is certainly not a bad view to start off with, is it? But it looks completely different to what it did when I arrived yesterday afternoon. The place was sunny, it was about 3 o'clock on a Sunday, and it was busy. There was a lot going on, and now it's about 7:15 on a very moody Monday morning. It was absolutely pouring down about 20 minutes ago, 30 minutes ago, so it's not too busy. So as always, you know, I like to get out nice and early to explore, so let's get started.
Beginning in perhaps the most iconic part of the city, Castle Square, I wander over towards the Old Town, greeted by the tall statue of Sigismund III with a cross and sword in hand. Passing by the lovely red bricked walls of former city defences, which have been largely reconstructed, I make my way into the oldest part of the city, greeted by the royal castle along the way. I have to say, the cobbled streets were strangely quiet in the early hours of this Monday morning, which made for quite pleasant viewing as I browsed through the streets until I made it to the Old Market Square.
Alright, so now I've just made my way into the Old Town Market Square, and if you've never seen any Polish cities or towns, you might be thinking, wow, you know, there's so much colour, the artwork on the buildings is, you know, beautiful. But this is really no exception. Now, I've been to a few other cities in Poland now, and all the old towns are just full, you know, of so much colour and vibrance. They really are stunning.
I'm really not over-exaggerating. Polish old towns always look like something out of a storybook, and this makes for a lovely spot to have a drink or some traditional Polish cuisine once the square comes to life on an evening. In the middle of the square is a lovely statue of a mermaid, which is surprisingly the symbol of Warsaw, and according to myth, is the protector and guardian of the city. Then, just as it's time to leave the market square behind, I get a close-up look onto some of the patterns and decorations you'll likely see on the Old Town buildings. Next up, just a few minutes walk away, is the Barbican, a defensive tower which was historically one out of 4 gates leading into the Old Town. This one was built in the 16th century, and later was partially dismantled due to it being inadequate as a consequence from military advancements. And somewhat ironically, the almost complete destruction of the Old Town during World War II left plenty of space to redevelop the old city defences as you see in front of you now. Then by accident, next I actually stumble across the Warsaw Uprising monument, paying tribute of course to the famous Warsaw Uprising. This was a historical event I knew very little about, but it wasn't long until I became aware of just how monumental and instrumental of an event it was in the course of history. After being invaded in September 1939 and subdued to ruthless Nazi occupation for 5 years, in 1944, incredibly brave Polish soldiers and underground resistance movements led a coordinated attack to retake the city. After being promised help by the Soviet Union, none came. Severely ill-equipped compared to German forces, Polish forces managed to battle for a long 63 days until eventually proving unsuccessful. As a consequence of retaliation, Heinrich Himmler ordered that the city be destroyed. What would follow would be the absolute ruining of the city. With an estimated 80 to 90% of the city's buildings being destroyed, it is absolutely unthinkable how a capital city could largely become just rubble. In the midst of this, many people were massacred or deported to labour and concentration camps. A staggering 200,000 civilians lost their lives. It truly is incredible to think that a city still stands here today.
I tell you what though, it's a bloody good job my skin's waterproof, because it is absolutely pissing it down. It's been on and off for about an hour and a half, 2 hours, so I might seek refuge for half an hour. Then we've got some interesting things coming up, so don't go anywhere. Tell me, don't. You stay right here.
After an hour or so, the rain passes and my wandering continues, past this lovely sandstone church, and then through the surprisingly open and spacious streets. Along the way, these fellas remind me I need to get back to the gym, and then I soon arrive at my next destination, which has quite the interesting tale. Although yes, the church was lovely inside, the interior design isn't the real reason I came inside. This is.
Alright, now I think it's only fair that in this video I tell you a little bit about Fryderyk Chopin. Now the famous pianist and composer is a Polish national treasure, having been born just outside of Warsaw. Now of course, as I've just shown you, inside the Holy Cross Church there is his heart. Now you might be wondering, how on earth is his heart there and not his body? Well, it's a very interesting story, so let me tell you. Alright, so what had happened is Chopin had died at the young age of 39 in Paris, but he wanted his heart to be returned to his homeland in Poland. So his big sister had to take his heart from Paris and smuggle it into Poland, and then obviously you saw where I showed you where it was buried in that Holy Cross Church. But it doesn't end there. So during the Second World War, the Nazis actually dug it up as they knew it was an important monument, you know, and cultural thing for the Polish people. But anyway, they returned it after the Second World War, and you think, oh, okay, that's the story done. It's not. So in 2014, I believe, a group of people secretly overnight dug it up again to check the condition of the heart. Now, when it was originally smuggled by his sister back into Poland, it was in a jar full of alcohol to preserve it. So basically when they dug it up, they wanted to see whether the alcohol was still in it and basically check the condition of the heart. Now if you're wondering why I kept changing position, it's not because a big group of kids came next to me and started watching me film and then I got scared. That's not what happened, I promise. But anyway, yeah, it's an absolutely crazy story, isn't it? So it's also, because it keeps raining, I'm going to go back, seek refuge for a few hours because I'm shattered, as always. 5 hours sleep is not good. And the adventure shall continue in a few hours, so yeah, I'll see you then. Alright, now just like that, I've had a little rest, a little nap, sort me right out. Anyway, now we're heading to the Warsaw Uprising Museum to learn a little bit more about that. Should be interesting. There we go, free entry on a Monday. Not bad, eh? Let's go and take a look inside.
The museum was actually pretty big inside, and will likely take you a few hours to go around it if you're interested in World War II history like me. However, I won't bore you with too much history, as I was suffering from information burnout when I was there myself, but I definitely recommend you still add it to your list, and learn about what was such a mind-blowing turn of events. And after the museum, it's time for the best views in the whole city.
Alright now, hello, it is day 2, beautiful sunshine, it's about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And I don't know why, but there's kids and school trips absolutely bloody everywhere. was the same in all the other cities I was in. I don't know what's going on. But anyway, we've got a few more things to tick off today. First off, we've got the Royal Castle, so let's go and explore that.
So I head on towards the Royal Castle, while really I'm attempting to get away from this big bear trying to charge me for selfies. And as I previously mentioned, all of this castle was destroyed during the Second World War and looked a bit like this. It really is astounding to think everything has practically been rebuilt from scratch. Anyway, upon entry, you were hit by grandeur pretty imminently. Dazzling chandeliers hang from ceilings graced with the finest artwork. Marble pillars and gold furnishings too evoke a sense of opulence and luxury. Though my favourite room was probably the marble room, full of, I'm sure you can guess. But my only complaint is that this handsome fella kept on following me around. Oh, and my shoes were outrageously squeaky on the floor. Within the castle is the Canaletto room, including work of an 18th century Italian painter. Now this isn't just any artwork, as they were used as blueprints to help rebuild the city of Warsaw back to its former glory after its destruction in the Second World War. It's crazy to think that this painter's such detailed work helped rebuild the city as a reflection of its golden age in the 18th century. After time at home to settle and rest, the castle was actually quite lovely on reflection. Although, try saying that to someone who was burnt out and tired.
Alright, now that is the castle done. It was 60 zloty, which was about £12, and it was a bit shit, to be honest. I mean, yeah, wasn't really that worth it, I don't think, but that might just be because I've reached information overload. Anyway, I think we've got one more thing, maybe two more things on the list, so let's do those before I nod off. I've not been sleeping very well.
Thankfully, the last point of interest was just what I needed. The museum of the famous Fryderyk Chopin, which had a few bits and pieces containing information and antiques from his personal and professional life. The coolest was probably his last ever piano. But honestly, I think what I enjoyed most was being forced to just slow down and listen to some beautiful music which he composed. My visit was then rounded off nicely with a free performance.
Tell you what, that's just what I needed, some beautiful, nice, relaxing piano music. Now it was about 25 zloty, so about £5 to get into the museum, and then that sort of concert was included in the price, so £5 to look around the museum, and then for that free concert as well. Usually I think there are other Chopin concerts around Warsaw and churches and stuff, but you're probably talking £15–20. So every Tuesday there is a concert here included, so get yourself along on a Tuesday if you're there on a Tuesday, and you can see that included in the entrance. But wow, I didn't really appreciate Chopin too much until, you know, seeing that last play, but the stuff they can do is absolutely mental. And right, I read the leaflet, it said she's 15. Like, that is insane, like having that much talent. So big up to her, that was incredible. I could not believe it when it said 2009, but yeah, mental. Anyway, can have a little wonder, might have some more things, might not, I don't know, it's all a mystery. But yeah, wow, I needed that, nice and relaxing. See you soon.
Anyway, I treated myself to an absolute feast on the evening, and before we wrap up, unfortunately I didn't have that much time in Warsaw, so didn't get to see it all, but some of the things I'd probably recommend you could add to your list are Park Łazienski, the Science Museum, the Mary Curie Museum, and Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, but make sure you check Google, as there's probably some more places you might be interested in. Come along and join me on many more of my adventures. I've got loads of videos in my Poland playlist, but for other places in Europe too. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, click subscribe and leave a comment, as they're always very much appreciated. But more importantly, in 2 weeks, join me as I venture through the once secret military headquarters of Adolf Hitler, Wolf's Lair, where I'll be exploring the remains of where he spent most of the war. the place where Hitler was almost assassinated by one of his own men. It truly is a fascinating yet eerie place, to walk through the very place where many of the atrocities of the Second World War were orchestrated.